Through the Veil recently released, and I want to take some time to talk about the story in the patch, speculate about the story going forward in the future, and talk about other topics related to the story of the Secrets of the Obscure expansion that I have been thinking about since I released my story discussion video after the main release of the expansion. To talk about the release as a whole, it was pretty good. It has a bit of a mixed reception because of how small this update was, with it being somewhere around 1/3 to half the size of a traditional Living World release. But I think as an addition to the base expansion, it's pretty good. I'm also someone who just doesn't care too much about how much content and how often content gets released in games, as long as I feel like I got my money's worth from a purchase. And with Secrets of the Obscure, I personally feel fine with what has been introduced, and any new content is just a bonus for me. I know the Strike Challenge mode that was added was underwhelming for most people that played in it, where they have actually buffed the boss, which is something that they don't do often, and it's nice to see. But as someone who doesn't care too much about difficult instance content in this game anymore, I haven't even touched it. The convergences that have been added to the game are great. I've had a ton of fun playing through this meta. It's similar in style to Dragonstorm, and is just all around a great experience, and I've enjoyed it so far. I think they were going to add more content like this in future updates, so I'm excited about that. The map itself, however small it is, has been great. The visuals of the map aren't my favorite, but I still like them, and I think it fits the vibe for the location that we are in and the story being told. When it comes to gameplay, I've actually had an absolute blast in this map. All of the events are fun, the meta is fun, and it's just fun to run around the map and do random things. This map may be in the running for one of my favorite maps in Guild Wars 2 when it comes to a gameplay perspective, and I hope the next two additions to it hold up. And then the story. And I think the story is pretty decent. It covers 3 missions, one of which is mostly done in the open world where you complete events. The first mission is an introductory mission where we are basically going from a 2-month break after the end of the Soto story into this new offensive into Nios, where it seems like Eparch and the Cryptus have become more powerful and more aggressive, so it's time that we prevent any destruction that they want to cause. Where the Wizard's Tower is attacked, we go through a rift and fight against the Cryptus, and then Peitha and us head deeper into Nios to meet up with the Resistance forces and the Astral Ward survivors. Where all across the map, we are basically helping out the survivors and resistance forces while also striking back against the Cryptus. I think the vibes of this map when it comes to the story are pretty good. It feels like we are on the outskirts of a central Cryptus area, like the countryside. It feels like there are a lot of Cryptus and we are invading their territory, but it doesn't seem like they have a very large presence in this specific area and just have a few outposts. I think a big idea of the story going on here is that the Cryptus don't really know where we are, and we are kind of just hiding from them while engaging in hit and run attacks. Whereas we look towards the story being told in the map in the future, I'm expecting that we will be seeing more buildings, larger buildings, and more Cryptus armies moving forward, where we have gotten a ton of hints about Eparch's castle being a large location that we will be interacting with in the future, and I would assume and hope that it would be huge, heavily fortified, and require a massive assault. If I were to make a quick prediction, I would guess that this part of the map is us just trying to dismantle the Cryptus forces as best we can, while setting up a staging area for reinforcements, where the second release will have us pushing further west into more civilized territory, where we will have to rally the Cryptus to our cause while striking down any loyalists. Whereas we do this, we attack various outposts and gain more land, and then the third update would involve a massive siege meta, maybe similar in style to the second half of the Northern Drizzlewood Coast meta, that has us taking over part of the castle. One thing I want to mention is a dialogue line that was said during a conversation with Arena and Peitha, where Peitha said, "All of this was copied from other worlds. We were born to the dirt of the demon realm." And I think this line is pretty big when it comes to the new lore being added throughout this expansion, where it seems that the Cryptus are weaker demons, where they just take a copy from other worlds, which implies that there are other realms of demons elsewhere in the mist that are much stronger and in turn much more threatening than the Cryptus. But it also means the realm of Nios is an interesting location where whatever Peitha means with Nios being copied from other realms is interesting. But moving forward to the final story mission, this is where we fight the final boss for this act of the Soto story. Where Hator was mentioned all act long, the part of Nios we are in is Hator's territory. Hator is a Cryptus general and a prominent member of Eparch's army. And we kill her. And that's the patch. We're going back to what I said earlier. I think this patch is just setting up the stage for a larger assault deeper into Nios in the next 2 updates, where we have defeated Hator and taken over this part of the world, and now the Astral Ward might be able to establish a portal to bring in reinforcements from Omnitas. This act was kind of interesting when it comes to the story, because the only character that we spend a lot of time interacting with is Peitha. We learn what Zosha has been doing, and she is officially a wizard now, and is going through everything that comes with that with her memories slowly coming back. where she plays a big part alongside Iscarin in the first chapter, and outside of those people, we don't really interact with too many other people outside of the first moments of the chapter. And I think with how great the characters are in this expansion, it's kind of sad that we don't interact with them more. But with that said, it makes a lot of sense. We are working with Peitha to claim this area of Naos. Afterwards, we'll be able to bring reinforcements into Naos, and then we will be interacting with the other members of the Astral Ward and Wizard's Court. When it comes to Peitha individually, I'm still not 100% sure if I trust her. I think there are two big things that could be happening here. The first is that Peitha is working with us in order to take over Naos, and she's going to take Epark's seat as the ruler of Naos, strengthen the Cryptus, and turn on S to try to take over Tyria. The second is that she is working with us in order to take over Naos, and she is going to take Epark's seat as the ruler of Naos, but she is going to strengthen the Cryptus and ally with Tyria in the future. We're looking forward to future expansions, not necessarily the next one, but ones in the future. We may come in conflict with different types of demons in the Mists, where if you're interacting with the demons, gods, or literally anything else in the Mists in some capacity, Peitha and her friendly Cryptus are going to be one of our most important allies in that fight. Where on one hand, it will be interesting to work alongside a faction of allies that we killed millions of a few expansions earlier and who threatened the safety of Tyria, but on the other hand, there are demons who know a lot about the Mists, which will come in handy for a future expansion related to the demons and the Mists. If I were to guess, the latter is going to play out. We're going to work with Peitha to rally the Cryptus and overthrow Epark. We're going to help Peitha become the leader of the Cryptus, and the Cryptus will be our allies in the future, whether or not we interact with them a lot in the future. One really cool thing we have started seeing in this chapter is more Cryptus allies, where of course we allied with Peitha at the end of the base story, but we are now starting to see more Cryptus work with us. The most prominent one is Ramses, who I think is a super cool character, and I was definitely in awe when we first met him. But I want to point out one other Cryptus, which is Urza. And I think Urza is a decent character, but it's another character that was introduced and then killed off soon after as a shock moment for the story. When we look at this story individually and this moment specifically, I think it was okay. I was definitely shocked to see Urza die. It makes Hator seem even worse of a person, and it motivates us in the fight with Hator that happens right after. However, and this is a sentiment that a lot of people in the Guild Wars 2 community have, is that this happens too much and people are a bit fatigued by it. We see a ton of random characters in the game get introduced, there's an attempt of a connection made between the player and the character, and then the character is quickly killed to be an emotional and important moment of the story. And I think a lot of people are tired of this type of story being told. We even had this in this expansion with Mabon being introduced and quickly killed moments later, where for some people, they don't even feel a connection with these characters and it's a non-existent moment in the story for them, and for others, it's overdone. I personally think each of these sacrifices are well written and work well in the story, but I definitely do think it happens a bit too much. Like, we already had Mabon in this expansion, and I was definitely thinking that Urza might be a recurring character that showcases the more, I guess you could say, human side of the Cryptus, but she's dead. We're looking forward into the future patches, and willing to bet we will see another sacrifice where another member of the Astral Ward and Wizard's Court will die. I think there's a chance that there could be a story moment where Epark is demonstrating how powerful he is and how hopeless we are and executes like 6 members in front of us, which different people would have different opinions about that. But if I were to make a prediction, I think Frode is set up to sacrifice himself. He is kind of like a mentor for the player character, and we know the track record for the player's mentors. There's also a massive storyline going on that was talked about throughout the Soda story, but is super prevalent in this patch, and that's Frode's daughter Arena, where I think we might have a moment in the story in the future where the Astral Ward and Wizard's Court are helping us defeat Epark, and something happens in this story where Frode sacrifices himself to save everyone, or specifically Arena. And I think that would be cool if implemented correctly, but might not be well received because of how many sacrifices happen in the Guild Wars 2 story, especially with Mabon and Urza having already died in the Soda story. Where if I were to make a set prediction of the ending to the Soda story and how it will feed into future expansions, it is this. The Wizard's Court, Astral Ward, the Cryptus Rebels, and ourselves are going to launch an offensive into a more heavily populated area of Naos. This is going to lead to Epark being defeated and Peitha taking over as the ruler of the Cryptus. Peitha is going to begin rebuilding and re-strengthening Naos and the Cryptus, where she's going to warn us about the other demon realms and how much attention there is on Tyria by the other realms, where we will return to Tyria for a few expansions and do a few different stories that are loosely connected to the idea of uniting and strengthening the Tyrian nations. We do a Char story related to the United Legions, we do a story related to the political crisis in Elona, and so on and so forth. where in the future expansion, we return to the Mists and fight other realms of demons, interact with the gods, and interact with the Mists once again. I think when you look at the story that has been introduced so far in the expansion and where it can go in the future, there is a lot to think about. We could be learning more about the Forgotten and how they potentially come from the Mists. We could learn more about the Bloodstones or even the Shadow Stones, especially with how one of the Shadow Stones was used to create the World Spire. We could be interacting more with the Mersat and Janthir. We could be interacting more with the Magic Soteria and what the Wizard's Bastions are. We could be interacting with the human gods. We could be interacting with countless other realms in the Mists, and just so much more. There is really a lot of things that could happen in Guild Wars 2 when it comes to the Mists and these more cosmic storylines. Likewise, there's a lot more that could happen in Guild Wars 2 when it comes to more grounded storylines. There's just a lot of stories that could be told from the lore and story we have learned in the game so far, and I really hope we get to explore a lot more of it in the future. And that's my thoughts. This video covers a lot of different ideas I've had about the story introduced in the Through the Veil update for the Secrets of the Obscure expansion. There's a lot more small stuff that we could talk about that I might highlight in a future video as well, but if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free to start a discussion in the comments down below. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.